Good afternoon. Today, I'm going to answer a very specific question. How Marxism, socialism, and all of that can be connected with the gospel, like religious, to give you a religious faith, and about identity politics, LGBTQ, which is includes the whole LGBTQ, and I'm also going to be talking about why does Marxist supports vaccines and mandates and all of that kind of things. So that's the kind of the purpose of this video. Let's start with the basic premise of being a Marxist. Marxist fundamentally is about an analysis of the economic system of capitalism, or it's basically is an analysis on how to analyze the world. Which is why, and then more specifically, it deals with capitalism and the contradiction that capitalism creates. Most economists or people who value capitalism don't like to think about the different contradictions that exist in the system. Now let's pick an example. If, and I am not going to use the libertarian value as my example. It's the typical go-to. Let's make something more difficult. Let's talk about the briefly, not getting into detail, the war in Ukraine. You have this conflict where you have Russia invading Ukraine. But let's think about the cause of it. You literally have one side that tells that the cause of it is Russia imperialism, and because Putin is bad, Russia is imperialist, they just want to control his neighbor, all of that. That's one narrative. The other narrative says that, what about the people that is in the Donbass? What about those people who's literally like it's been living a life of discrimination for the past 8 years, all because they never accepted the Kiev coup in 2014. When you look at the evidence, there was the vast majority of ethnic Russians never accepted the Maidan. It was only the Western Ukrainians who hated it, who supported it. Yet instead of have a dialogue, they literally labeled them as separatists. They, as Ukrainian traitor, as Russian agent. Like basically, they demonize that population, and they continually to escalate that situation, where they essentially have a civil war. That is the result of that contradiction. And that's literally what our Marxist analysis will do. Literally, so one way to look at it is you pick two contradictions and what that condition leads to. And that's the dialectic method. But what's special about Marxism compared to other forms of dialectics, which by the way dates back all the way to ancient Greece, it focuses on the material condition of the people. What does the condition of the people are experiencing? Does that mean that all dialectics is always bad? No, it doesn't. You can you can have examples where it can lead to certain good outcomes. For example, a person a person is hungry. They're hungry, they want food. So, and you have a farmer who's producing food and supply food for the people to eat. So therefore the result is that people have food to eat for the people to be successful. Yes, typically speaking, it usually highlights the negative aspect of society. You can always use it to highlight the positive aspect of society. And that's what a Marxist economist will focus on. That's what I'm really am. Like I don't hold to the view of what would be classified as a Marxist in the sense of a communist, the Marxist-Leninist, the people who comes out of Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin And that branch of people will have their own philosophy. And if you think about any socialist countries that exist, or like communism countries, is always referred as China, Cuba, USSR, Vietnam, North Korea. These countries never claim that has ever achieved communism. Not a single one of them. They will always claim they're a socialist. But being a socialist can mean different things to different people. And there's no true one definition of being a socialist. Everyone will have their own definition of being a socialist. I know this sounds complicated, which it really is. And this is a huge problem among the left. There is no left unity, because everyone will have their own chain of thought of what is to be a socialist. Generally speaking, the way I like to define being a socialist is to love your neighbor as thyself, as in quoting Jesus. Basically cooperating with each other to end discrimination, to not say that I'm better than you for XYZ. That's never the goal of socialists. A socialist always want to bring a better life for everyone, despite that person's background. It doesn't matter if that person is a Muslim, a Russian, a black, an Indian, a Mennonite, or a Aboriginal person, a Great British, or European, African, American. I don't care where you are in the globe, of who you are. No discrimination. We want to end discrimination. That is the goal of a socialist. And the goal is to always to increase the, basically, if I kind of sum him up, is increase the quality life of a person without discrimination. This is one of the biggest issues that I have of why I see so many leftists who are Ukraine supporters. When it goes directly against every single leftist value of not discriminating against people. Killing people, genocide, like, those kind of things is literally against leftist values. No one group person is better than another. That is the point of socialism. We want to live in a society where everyone can cooperate with each other regardless of your background. Communism, which I argue is essentially heaven, the definition of communism, which no conservatives, no right-wing person will ever going to admit, and why socialists will always say communism has never been achieved. No communist countries has ever claimed they achieved communism, but they're socialists, including China. It's a definition of a stateless, classless, and a moneyless society. Abolish the state, abolish money, abolish classes. And if you want to distinguish classes as saying that discrimination between one group to another, that's also, you could say, like ending the discrimination, like in the context of Ukraine going back, ending the discrimination against ethnic Russian will be part of abolishing classes, saying that Ukrainians are superior, so they should have a privileged position over the ethnic Russians. Now, does that mean that we don't want hierarchy? The answer is no. We recognize there's always going to be some form of a hierarchy. Even if you just use a basic concept of where you have a group of friends where you need to select a leader to basically help organize the group. So there needs to have some sort of chain of command. But it's more horizontal. It's more like the leader is accountable to the people, rather the people is accountable to the leader. It's basically not having a person who has absolute power over another person. Biblically speaking, all men are created equal. Yes, I will say that God is above me because I'm his children. Because he still knows better than I do. In anarchist concept, we're argued that which I am, I am an anarchist, not a communist. And anarchists do believe on the individual freedom of a person, that the person should be able to free to do things. And that freedom comes from the individual rather from the state, from the society, which is an argument that is made by the communist. Which is why, and the communists don't really recognize the freedom of individuals. They only recognize the freedom that comes, how can I describe it? Okay, I'm going to use an example. In the USSR, they didn't believe in a free press, where the people has ability to criticize the government. And that is actually true for China, like any communist country. Like, you're not really allowed to criticize the government. And you can, and yes, there's our protests, there's like a level, they will usually do, you think that national security is more important. And we see in the USSR the issue of people not able to leave the USSR without being shot. They're like fleeing, like they have to flee the country. They're not, they can't freely leave the country. However, they're going to focus like, what can I focus on your material condition to improve your life? So one way to describe it, a communist country will be thinking of like, what can I do to improve your material condition? But they're going to fail to understand that the individual liberty of people is also important. And that leads to the whole conversation of mandate. The mandate, a Marxist will look at it and say, that the individual liberty of the people, it doesn't really matter, because we're trying to get your material condition better by literally giving you a vaccine. But this vaccine, because of a pandemic, is going to help you get a better life. And that will improve your material condition. And they're going to say, yeah, I understand that under a capitalist system, there's so much I can do because the vaccine comes from a capitalist industry, business, but I don't really have much choice because I have to choose. Okay, what I wanted to think about it is a lesser of the two evil. Which one is more important? Helping the condition of the people so they don't get sick, so that they can go back to work, they can go see a house, they can live a freer life, they don't get a COVID, they don't get sick. Look, dealing with a virus that has a 2% death rate, 30% of all cases gets long COVID, all of that. So we're going to support the mandate because it's going to force people in the long run to have a better quality of life rather being sick. And yes, people like Yanis Varoufakis, even though they're very much he's more of a Marxist-Leninist thinker. And that's what you're going to have, that kind of chain of thought. You have the other issue a lot of Marxists have, like socialists have, in regards of the freedom movement, why it's been classified as a bourgeois movement. The issue, right from the beginning, and this is actually kind of like my position. My position, and a lot of people, and why I actually kind of use the language of genocide and all of that. Okay. And the issue of mandate is like, is mandate really helping? I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of like, let's deal with the issue of the mandate itself, and then go and explore. The mandate is I understand, and this is something that I always believe, there is a balance between where, yes, you have to take take care of other personal need, and yes, and yes, you also should have the ability to do things without persecution, without like, because like I really disagree with the communist countries with the fact that they don't believe on individual liberties. And if you notice, I'm trying to refrain from using the word freedom, because that word in my worldview can be completely meaningless. Yes, me walking down the street without chains, or have a gun pointed to my head, I'm free. I don't have any restraint against me. I'm literally a free person. I am able to choose how I live. At the same time, I also recognize that my freedom is also being taken away if I get sick. Like, because I have a long COVID, my freedom is being taken away from me, because I am not able to study, I am not able to work, I am not able to do a whole bunch of things, because my freedom is being taken away because of a disease. And if a vaccine is there to help me reduce, or medication or something that will help with my disease, then it will grant me a new freedom. Another example I like to use is driving in the middle the traffic laws. That is another form of freedom that a person can receive. Yes, you're restraining the person's movement because you're not allowing them to drive through intersection without consequence. But at the same time, if there is an actual accident, that person is now injured. That person's freedom is being limited now because he lost his vehicle. There's all kinds of consequence because of it. So there's a balance between the two. And this balance is tricky. And I believe, and in one other way to look at it, religiously speaking, God gave commandments, which I view commandments as laws, as a way to not limit your freedom, but to give you more freedom in the long run. Yes, it might seem that you're limiting your freedom by saying that you can't have sex outside of marriage, for example, or you should not steal or whatnot. But but one thing, or if you steal from another person, guess what? You're creating distrust between you and that person. If you don't steal from that person, you are creating trust with that person, and you can cooperate with that person in the long run. So, and my sense about the mandate is that I'm starting to wonder, did it actually went too far? That being said, what is my issue with the so-called freedom movement? Why do I still view it as a petite movement, a right-wing movement, a conservative movement? Yes, you might find a few leftists here and there who supports it. Because once again, leftists don't really agree with each other. There's no leftist unity. And that is the number one issue of why we have huge problem of organizing. Even though we talk all the time that we need to organize. That's an entire different topic. Going back to the Marxist analysis on why I make the claim about genocide. You have a pandemic, a virus that is spreading across the globe, that is impacting countless lives across the globe. You have the other side, who has been downplaying COVID from day one. At every single turn of this pandemic, conservative has always tried to downplay the virus. They say it's not as lethal, it's not as dangerous, the vaccine's not needed, we need to abolish mandates. It's always about it is always like, we don't like these things. Why do they say this? Because of freedom. Because my personal freedom is being limited. And we are fighting for freedom. The ability to do what exactly? To essentially buy and sell goods once again. So again, you have the contradiction on one side that says that the pandemic is not real, it's not true, it makes all kinds of excuses to say that we should not have vaccine, you should not have mandates, you should not have for X, Y, Z. They've been fighting COVID from day one. Then you have a virus that is once in a lifetime pandemic. So what's the result? When you remove all the mandate. You're now going to just buy the store, buy and sells goods, and just pretend that the pandemic is over. This is my issue. My issue from the start, why I call it that they just push for a genocide. And I still believe it. They don't have a solution for the problem. They want to take away all of those issues, all the mandates, vaccine mandate, like all take away the mandates, and pretend that everything is fine. While people are still getting sick. They don't have a solution to replace it to take care of the need of the people, of the sick and the needy and the vulnerable. The solution: just get sick, just lose weight, just work throughout. It's just a flu. And I'm just sitting here. It's not just like a flu. It's never been like a flu. You're just downplaying the severity of it. And you don't want to take responsibility of your action. Again, there's a contradiction of their own actions. And I will not have a problem with the freedom movement if they have a solution to replace the mandates and the vaccine. But they have none. They just want to get them out. That is why it's classified as a bourgeois movement. And the second one is the sheer hypocrisy of it. Because the same people who are against the vaccine mandate, they will have no problem to use the state power to limit other people's freedom as they see fit for religious ground or for whatever other discriminatory reason. In the US, abolishing Roe v. Wade so that they can punish women for having abortion. Literally controlling women's fetus. And they have no problem using the power of the state to reinforce those kind of belief when it's fist fit. So it's the hypocrisy as well that I'm against. I am against the banning of the LGBTQ laws that Putin has made in Russia. I'm really against it. Do I recognize that Canada went too far? Oh yes, I have a conversation that feminism has went too far. And I did, and the more I look into it, the more I'm like, yeah, Yeah, it did went too far. That being said, as a religious person, if you want to become a member of the church, you cannot live in that life. And I was like, yeah, you are a lesbian. Yeah, you have to repent and become, and you can only have a heterosexual relationship. However, if you are a non-member, you're not a Christian, it is not me who can dictate how you live your life. I have no right to use the power of the state to dictate your life. And I am all completely opposed how homosexuality was viewed as a mental illness. That's another example of the hypocrisy of the freedom movement. Yes, to recap, you want to remove the mandate? Fine. What are you going to do to help the sick and the needy? Are you going to tell them to just get over it and go back to work? Or are you going to offer a solution on how to deal with the virus that will improve their lives? I've yet seen a single freedom movement people who has ever offered a solution to that. At the same time, they will have no problem banning anything that they viewed as neo-Marxism or cultural Marxism or wokeism or anything that they viewed as immoral. And this is exactly what fascism is. Now, fascism and Nazism is different. And I'm still trying to work those details out in my head. Because there is some difference. And I'm having some issue because I'm not going to call Donald Trump a Nazi, but I definitely can call him a fascist. And I can't call Putin a fascist, especially in regards to his LGBTQ laws. Again, the point, and before I continue, is like the point is not that those things are good or evil. It's the ability of the people to make their own choices, and we have no right to enforce those will upon others, especially if you believe in agency, the free will for men to choose between good and evil. As an LDS person, that is the very fundamental principle of the gospel. Agency is paramount. And Lucifer was kicked out of the garden of heaven because he wanted to take the agency of people away. Well, Jesus did not. Now, Calvinists don't really believe in free will. But anyways, I'm not going to go too much in detail about that, but I'm going to finish with this. Fascism It is obsessed with two things. And that is actually, I'm taking this directly from Hitler. Chaos and order. Chaos is anything that is remotely to the left. At this time, it would be the Social Democrat, the Communist, Anarchist, LGBTQ, workers, literally anything that goes against conservative value. And of course, don't forget Jews. And also, he hated disabled people, the sick, the needy. All of those things is all part of chaos. Order, in its definition, is the extermination of all of those things. Oh, and I almost forgot. Slavic people is part of chaos. Order is using state power to remove the chaos, to make things all orderly, to use law and order, to use things to basically don't try to solve this systemic issue, just use the power of the state to suppress them. That is what the conservatives has always done. Putin is not really trying to solve the issue of the LGBTQ. He's viewed those people as chaos, so he's going to use the power of the state to crush those because he wants to just basically push those issues away and ignore as if those things does not exist. Of course, those kind of things always comes back in an ass. Once again, let's go back to Ukraine. The entire thing is happening in the eastern Ukraine. It's chaos. So what is it going to do? This uses the Western Ukraine uses state power to literally crush the eastern Ukraine. They don't want dialogue. More guns, more power to crush it. Abortion. We don't want to help women to actually stop using abortion. No, we're going to use the state of power to end abortion. Again, it's this entire thing is of we do not deal with the material condition of the person. We're going to try to deal using state violence to deal with the issue while ignoring the material condition of the people. And it all comes down back to, so to recap my entire spiel is this. Being a socialist is to be against discrimination. You want to cooperate with each other. You don't want one person to exploit another person. To say that one person is better than another. And at another time, I will get more in topic on the difference between the social democracy, the communists, and the anarchists. There are major differences between those three categories, and at some point I will get into those categories. But for now, a socialist is a person who wants to love your fellow man and wants to end discrimination. You want to cooperate with each other. The issue that socialists has with LGBTQ people issue is that they need to have the right that they exist without persecution. They can do whatever they want as long as they don't cause problem for other people. Being a religious person, if you say that person becomes a member, you become a Christian of your domination, sect, or whatever, yes, they have to follow your rule. They can't impose their will over yours. They have to follow your belief. But you don't have your right to impose your belief on them by using state. The issue that the socialist has over the mandate is, what are you going to do if you remove the mandates? Just pretend that everything is fine? That's not a solution. The socialist view of fascism is essentially saying that you want to use the power of the state without improving the material condition of the people. I hope that clarifies everything. And I'm not, and I want to say one last thing. I'm not saying that that a specific individual is responsible for genocide. Like I want to clarify that point. Like I don't want to say like this person over here, he's committed genocide. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like the policymakers, the movement itself, or not. Yeah, I can see that, and the movement can leads to that. And I do see the problem of money because of the overstep. It is, and the overstep is an entirely different issue. But as I'm going back to my previous point, is the spectrum. When is it that the something is needed to be like when do you need laws, when you don't need laws? There's a spectrum. You can't just simply like remove everything. I hope this makes sense.